Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to the 10th episode of the Non-Coder's Guide for GDScript. In this episode, what we're going to be doing is actually getting our bullets to shoot out of our gun. We made the bullet scene in the last episode. It simply travels forward and dies or freezes or is deleted from the game if it flies off the screen or if it hits an object. So pretty cool. Now what we're going to be doing is spawning those bullets at our gun. And spawning is essentially just a layman's term for instancing a scene, right? And instancing is just making a carbon copy of this kind of like foundational scene that has like everything we need. So in order to do that, we're going to hop into our player script right here. And we're going to make a new variable that is going to store the information required to make an instance. So right, all the information about this bullet scene, we're going to store in a variable right here that I'm going to call var bullet underscore tscn. You can call it whatever you want, but I typically name these like this. I'll say whatever it is and then underscore tscn to let me know that this is the scene. This is the information about that scene. So we're going to say equals preload, and I'll tell you what that means in a second. But now we're going to go ahead and get the path to this. And you can see it's already popped up. It's actually right here. So we could do that. But typically this is not going to, you're going to have hundreds of scenes or even just 20 scenes in your game. You're not going to see them pop up right here. The best way to do this is just go down to your file system tab and you can either search for bullet as I have right there, or in our case, you can see that it's just res, main character, and then bullet. And we'll click and drag the scene into these parentheses and you can see that right here is the path. Now, if you don't know what a path is in computer programming or computers, essentially it just is like the address of where a file lives at your computer, right? It tells something how to find that file. So this contains no information about the file or anything in it. It just says where it is, right? So here it says res, which is this main folder. Then we say main character, which is this folder. And then the final file is bullet scene. And that's at the end of that right there. And that will go ahead and point us there. Now, as I said, this doesn't actually tell us anything about the file that's at that location. It just tells us where it is. So this function preload, what this does is it actually goes to that location and then loads all of the information in that file into this variable right here. Or technically right here, and we're capturing it in that variable, right? It's a function that returns that information. Preload does that. And then we capture that information in the bullet underscore scene. So now this variable has all the information required to do that. And preload is cool because what preload, the reason it's called pre instead of just load, is that it does it essentially before your game starts. So it does it like right now in the editor. There's also a function called load, right? And it does the exact same thing, but you have to do that at runtime or while your game is running. So you'd have to do that at least in the ready function. And then we could say the same thing. Like we could say bullet scene equals load that in the ready function, or if you're smart, you could do an onReady var. But this is better because then we don't have to do this at runtime. Anyway, so now we have the information required to make an instance. Let's go ahead and make an instance. So we'll make an instance right here in physics process, but we want to only make an instance, right? Because essentially making an instance is going to shoot the bullet. We only want to make an instance when we push some kind of shoot a button here. So we'll quickly add a shoot input to our input map here. So remember, go to project settings, input map. In action, we're going to add a new action. I'm going to call this shoot, and then we'll click add here. Now scroll down to the bottom, you can see here it is, but we have no keys or anything like that, so we'll click this plus button, and I'm going to add the space bar. All I did is press the space bar and I will hit OK, and then I also want to add a mouse button just for kicks. We'll say add. Okay, so now if I press the space bar or the left mouse button, if anything is monitoring for the shoot, which we're about to do, then it will be triggered, right? So we can say if input dot is underscore action just pressed shoot, okay, pass, right? And this will essentially be where we make the spawning. Now, just to quickly go over this again, this is an if statement, right? We're checking if this is true, and is only true if we're pressing the spacebar or clicking our thing. And you can see here we've done the same thing for movement. We say input.get action strength. Here we're getting the strength of that action. Here we're just saying, is it pressed or not, right? And there's two things here. Is action just pressed? Essentially what this does is it means you can't just hold down the spacebar and just auto load, like shoot bullets nonstop. You have to press the spacebar every single time you want this to happen, right? You can also do just is action pressed if you do want it to be fully automatic and stuff like that. Now there's more that goes into that, but that's just basically the difference. This will only evaluate to true once, and then it immediately returns back false until you like lift your finger up and press the button again. So that, anyway, that's just that. Pretty handy. Now, what we're going to do is actually create an instance of our bullet scene here. So we're going to create a new variable. We're going to say var, and we'll say bullet underscore instance, and we're going to say equals bullet scene dot, and then instance, right? Just like that, okay? Now, quickly, again, there's a few things I want to go over. One is that we've never made a variable like this inside of a function or inside even of an if statement. And what essentially this does when you do this, you can make variables anywhere technically, but if you make a variable here, it's available anywhere in your script. I can go ahead and I can like reference this bullet scene thing in any point. But if I make the variable in this if statement, it only exists within this if statement. So I can't go right here now, or even like if I wanted to go below this and like my movement here, I can't reference bullet underscore instance. It's going to say like this is undefined, right? So I'll get that error. Isn't declared in the current scope, right? So anyway, that's why we're doing that. And then again, instance is just going to take the information that is stored in bullet scene, and we're going to make a carbon copy of that, and we're actually going to store it in this variable. Now, we've made that carbon copy, but it only exists in this script. It doesn't exist in our game yet. That's where we're going to use the function add underscore child, and then we're going to say bullet instance. Okay, so now when we press the shoot button, we're going to create an instance of our bullet and we're going to add it to the scene tree. And we're going to, right now this is problematic, but we're going to be adding it to ourselves. So if I run the game here, you can see I can move around, and if I press space, it shoots the bullets, but there's quite a few problems. One is that it's not coming out of our gun, right? Two is that you can see the bullets are moving with me, and that's because we're adding them as children of ourself. What we want to actually do is add them as children of the like parent, right? Because technically we'll be here, so you can imagine this, and we want to add them to this because this scene isn't moving. That's kind of like a global scene. So let's just quickly do that. All we have to do is use a function called get underscore parent dot add child bullet scene. Now this won't work in all circumstances, but for most of my scripts, even complex games, this is all I do. And you can see now, but now the problem is that it's going to just shoot from the top there, because by default, it's setting to spawn right at position 0, 0 on whatever it was. That's why it was at center on us before, because that was our position 0, 0. So what we want to do is actually tell it where we want it to spawn. And so what I'm going to do here is actually add a barrel position here by going Command A or clicking the plus button, and we're going to search position 2D. And this is literally just a node that acts as to know a position. We're going to make it a child of the gun, and then I'm going to go ahead and move this right there. So this is like where I want the bullets to spawn, right? Now, what's great about putting it as a child of the gun is now when we rotate the gun, you can see that the position stays where it is, right? Which is cool. And then we can just say spawn it at this position, and wherever this position is, it will spawn there, which is nice. So what we'll do is we'll make another onReady variable, onReady var, and we'll say like, I don't know, like gun, or no, we'll say like barrel, right? And we'll say equals gun position 2D. You can see I just started typing in position 2D and it automatically popped that up for me. And so now this accesses this node right here, and what we want to do is then tell our bullet instance to spawn there. So say bullet bullet instance dot global position equals barrel dot global position. Okay, and now if we run around, you can see, oh yeah, I forgot I broke the WASD keys. You can see that it shoots from the tip of the barrel. But of course, now the problem is that it is going just straight, because that's what we've programmed the bullet to do. Now, what we want to do is then change a little bit of the bullet code and change something here. So we want to go in the bullet, and you can see that it's going that way because we've told it to do that. We've told the global position to just do rotate right times speed. But now what we want to do is actually rotate this to be whatever the bullet rotation is. So sorry if I'm moving a little fast here. Essentially, vector2.right, again, is just pointing straight right, but we can use a function called .rotated, and then we can say rotation here. And so essentially what this will do is rotate the vector. So if we say, for instance, we provide like 90 degrees here, rotated right would be up. Or no, actually in Godot's case, it would be straight down, right? So vector2.rotated 90 degrees would be vector2.down, or the same thing. But this way, all we have to do is say we want it rotated whatever the rotation of this is, right? And then if we rotate it right here by saying bullet underscore instance dot rotation equals gun dot rotation, okay? So what we're doing is we're setting the rotation of the bullet equal to whatever the rotation of the gun is. Because if our gun is rotated this way, it's pointing this way, and thus we want the bullet to, rather than shoot at vector 2.right, be rotated in that same direction. So now you can see that if we run around, I can go, again, I can't use the things like that, but now I can move the gun, and you can see that it shoots out in the direction that's happening, just like that. And that's just about it. I want to quickly kind of go over exactly what we're doing here to kind of ensure that everyone understands. First, we're making a new variable called the bullet instance that only exists within this if statement right here. We're setting it equal to bullet scene.instance. Again, bullet scene just contains the information required to make an instance, right? So it's got, this is an area 2D, what are the properties that we set to it, and what script does it have and stuff like that. It contains all that information, and then instance takes that information and actually makes an object out of it, but it currently only exists in the script in this case. So what we want to do is then use add child to actually put it in the world. We're using get parent to make sure that it is a parent of the the bullet instance is a child of this, and so that way when we move around, it doesn't follow us and move around with us, right? These two lines here ensure that the bullet behaves as we'd expect it to, right? So we make sure that we spawn it. By default, it's going to spawn at the position 0, 0, which remember, coordinates in 2D space, this is position 0, 0, as you can see here. And so by default, if we don't tell it what position to spawn to, it's just going to spawn at 0, 0. Just like if we added something here and we added a sprite, it's going to, probably add a sprite here. You can see that it just spawns at position 0, 0 by default. And you can see that in the transform property, we have to tell it where we want it to spawn if we want it to not spawn there. And that's why we do this. So we tell it that its global position equals our barrel.global position, which again is just that position 2D we put on the barrel here. And then finally, the last thing we did is set the bullet rotation equal to whatever rotation our gun is at. So our gun is aiming this way. We make sure that the bullet is rotated that way. And then we change the bullet script just slightly to make sure that it is rotated to face whatever rotation, or the velocity it's moving is rotated to face whatever rotation that we want it to move at, right? And that's basically all this is saying, and that's what I wanted to cover today. Thank you so much for watching, and have a great day.